Hello everyone, we are going to watch Team Principals press conference. Let's watch it together.
To the team representatives press conference ahead of the FIA Formula One Singapore Grand Prix. We have three gentlemen with us right now. Closest to me, Mario Isola, then Fred Vasseur and James Vowles. Well, Mario, why don't we start with you? An exciting week last week for Pirelli. We saw the 2026 tyres break cover. What can you tell us about the test in Barcelona?
Yeah, obviously it was the first test, a bit difficult. Our main job was to try to correlate simulations with the mule car. We know that mule cars cannot be representative considering that 2026 cars are completely different, but I believe we did a good job, and thanks to Aston Martin, that was the first team running the test. Valuable information and probably also a good starting point as a baseline for future development.
Can you tell us any more about the information you got from Aston Martin or the driver Felipe Drugovich?
The main topic was to understand the mechanical balance and the aero balance of the car. So, for example, we decided to run always with the DRS open in order to compensate the front and rear load. And then they made some adjustment, obviously, to the setup of the car to balance the car properly. But the new size is working well. We didn't find any issue in running or any, some like a lot of graining or other elements that could affect the test. So we are happy with this first test and we are ready for the next two sessions.
Well, tell us, what's the plan going forward? Aston have had a go. Which team is next?
McLaren then and Alpine for a wet test. This is to the end of the year. And then obviously we are finalizing the test plan for 2025 with all the teams that gave their availability to make a mule car for us. So we are very happy that we can test with all of them.
You mentioned 2025. Just a quick word on where you are with next year's tyre compounds. Are they confirmed now?
The construction, the new specifications have been homologated by the 1st of September as per regulations, and then now we are in the process of fine-tuning compounds. We have a few options. We have Mugello, where we are going to finalize the hard compounds, and then we have another couple of sessions and the in-competition test in Mexico, where we are going to test the soft compounds in FP2 with all the teams with different run plans. So I believe we are in a good position to finalize the tire for 2025.
And Mario, a quick word on the here and now in 2024. We saw a sensational race in Baku last weekend. Did the tyres perform as you expected there?
Yeah, to be honest, yes. We made some analysis after the race, as we always do, and we didn't find anything, I would say, strange. Obviously, there are many elements that are affecting the tire behavior, from the setup of the car, track evolution, first laps of the stint that obviously are affecting the level of degradation. But tires were working well. We had some teams able to extract a good performance from the tires, and this is exactly what we want to achieve on a race that was super interesting, but was not just Baku, was Monza, was Spa, was in the last few weeks we had a lot of races that have been super exciting. Clearly, when you have all the teams that are very close in terms of performance, any detail can make a difference, and this is exactly what is happening.
Final one from me. Quick word on Singapore, the Marina Bay circuit. There's been some resurfacing work ahead of this year's race. How are you expecting that to affect tyre performance?
We measure the grip. The grip is still good. It's quite homogeneous. They use this high-pressure water jet treatment on the asphalt. And so I'm not expecting any surprise from the track. We have seen in FP1 that the track is the level of grip is good, and I'm expecting a lot of track evolution that is quite common on street circuits.
Okay, Mario, thank you very much. James, can I come to you next? Two words. First up, Franco Colapinto. He's made an impact, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's done an absolutely outstanding job. Just really jumped straight into it, 2 feet first, and has been swimming ever since. But he's doing brilliantly well. And to score points in your second ever Grand Prix, be a few seconds behind Alex is extraordinary. And again this morning, brilliant job.
Has he exceeded your expectations?
Yes, in as much as we knew he was quick based on that's why we put him in the car, but expected him to take more time to get up to speed. In Monza, that was about what I would have hoped for, effectively. But going to a new track that you've never been to before and been on the pace, really, in FP1, and even after an accident, coming straight back onto the pace is a challenge. And he's very, very good at absorbing all the pressure that's on his shoulders and just delivering. What's
his most impressive quality?
How calm he is under pressure. There's a huge amount of... it's always hard to describe what happens to these elite athletes when you step up into Formula One. It's a completely different world, and the pressure mounts exponentially, and he takes it all in his stride. You can hear over the radio, just listen to his voice. He's just incredibly calm and collected and just wants more information. So it's a sign of a really good individual that's able to cope with what's happening.
As you say, he's hugely impressive. And knowing what you know now, do you wish you'd brought him into the team earlier in the year?
It's an interesting question because in part, a lot of what we were doing with him behind the scenes is developing him ready for this opportunity. So Silverstone was one of the first times he got into the car. And he'd made a step clearly from where we were in Abu Dhabi the previous year. He'd made some steps across the winter. He'd made some steps in Formula 2. If we'd done this at the beginning of the year, I don't think you'd see the Franco you have today. And I think there's quite a bit of preparation we've been doing in the simulator and otherwise to get him to the region where he is now. In terms of that regret, I mean, making a decision to take a driver out is one of the hardest things you can do in my position. And I had to make sure it was abundantly clear it was the right place. And for me, at the point where we upgraded the car and we've delivered performance with it where it can score points, that's the right line in the sand. So from that perspective, I'm content.
All right. That upgrade you talk about was Zandvoort. You've got, I think, a new floor here. Can you just tell us about the impact that is making this weekend?
So here's actually suspension, which is a balancing tool and aerodynamics. It really complements the aero upgrade that we put on the car in Zandvoort. But that's working well at the moment.
Look, final one. Can we talk about the Constructors' Championship? You're 18 points behind V-Carb in P6. How realistic is it, do you think, to aim for P6 by the end of the year?
I mean, you can see this morning again, V-Carb are right up there in that top 10 mix. They're going to be quick around here. And you can't underestimate either Haas, who they've been there every single race. They're on the pace, or V-Carb particularly in that instance. The midfield is, despite us perhaps being edging a little bit ahead of them, it's still milliseconds separating all of us. So it'll be down to a little bit of fortune in racing and a little bit of us making sure we do our job right to the end of the year.
All right, James, thank you for now. And Fred, coming to you, can I put that championship question to you first of all? You're 51 points behind Red Bull Racing, who are leading the Constructors' Championship. You're, 21 points behind McLaren. How high are you aiming this year? The other way around, sorry.
I was going to say.
Yeah. 51 points behind McLaren, okay, 21 points. Forgive me, Fred. 51 points behind the top of the table. How high are you aiming?
But from the beginning, we are not focused on the championship. We are taking races after races, and I think it's the right approach. As James said before, that the championship is really difficult to read because doesn't matter if it's the first group or the second one. It's so tight that you can move from a good weekend. You are doing 1-2, and the weekend after you are 7-8. Have a look on Mercedes, what they did before the break and after the break, and I think this is true for everybody. And I think it makes no sense to imagine how could be the picture in 2 or 3 months. We have still something like 400 points on the table, I think, for the team championship, and it's a lot. It means that let's be focused on Baku, on Singapore, and then on the next one, and try to do a good job. And we'll see at the end.
Pole at Baku, 4 consecutive podiums now for Charles. Do you think? Sorry.
You are lost, or?
I am a little bit lost. But look, Fred, do you feel that Ferrari got some momentum? Sorry, forgive me.
Yeah, no, we are in a good sequence, but you know, it was like this for everybody from the beginning of the season. That if you remember the first 4 races that Red Bull was flying, then we had a good sequence. Then it was Mercedes, then McLaren. Then we are really in a pack, and I don't remember when it was so tight in F1. With 4 teams able to win, 8 drivers able to win, and you really never know when you are going somewhere if you will fight for P1, P2, or P7, P8. It means that for sure we are in a good momentum. As you said, we did the pole position last week. Charles scored a lot of points the last 4 weekends or 5 weekends. That Carlos is performing, and he will perform this weekend again. And but we never know. That it means that we have just to stay focused on the next session to try to get the best from the car that we have, and to do a weekend without mistakes, because this is costing a lot.
Well, tell us about the upgrades you're running here. It looks like you've hit the ground running.
Yeah, but we did one session with a new front wing with a platform a little bit different, but it won't be a game changer.
Okay, look, quick word on Carlos. First up, are there any ill effects from his crash in Baku last weekend?
I think on the psychological side, first, I think it was good for us to come back on track, and for Carlos to come back on track just the next week, to come back on track in Singapore when he has good memory. And I think it was the best way to clean up the situation after Baku. And I'm not worried at all about the approach of Carlos for this weekend.
Final one on Carlos. This is race number 200 for him. He's driven, I think, 80-odd races for Ferrari. What is the best race you've seen him drive in one of your cars?
I would say that the last win, it would be the easiest reply, but I think the win of last year in Singapore, because he did the pole position, because he managed very well the pressure from Lando and the Mercedes, and he was very clever in the management of the race, keeping able to slow down to keep Lando and I think it was Russell behind into the DRS to manage this situation. He was mega clever, and it was for me one of the best races that I saw.
Was indeed a very clever race. Right, let's open this to the floor. As ever, name and publication. Who's first? Fred.
Fred Fairley, keep question to Fred. Are you concerned by the statement the FIA made about the rear wing of the McLaren?
Worry, I'm not sure that is the right word. I think there is a kind of confusion between what's happened with the front wing and the rear wing. The front wing, we all agree that it could be a grey area, because that into the TD, the first paragraph of the TD is saying that you can't design a part of the car with the intention of the deformation. Intention is difficult to manage. The rear wing story, it's completely different, because on the article you have also a maximum deflection, and this is black or white. It's not no grey, no dark grey, no light grey. It's black and black. And for me, it's clear.
James, can we bring you in on this as well?
You can do. I have bigger worries than McLaren's rear wing, if I'm honest. But I think sort of Fred summarised it well, which is first and foremost the front wing. There is an element of understanding up and down the pit lane. On the rear wing, I've seen various images. I can't personally assess what it is or is not doing at that point. All we have to do is rely on the FIA doing their checks in the correct way. But there's an intention behind how we're working the cars aerodynamically.
All right, thanks both. Where are we going next? Ed, yeah.
Ed Straw, the race. One for Fred. What dialogue have you had with the FIA about the McLaren wing? It's understood that they have been told, McLaren, not to have been told to modify the wing so it doesn't flex as much. Are you satisfied with this outcome? Because even if they modify it now, they've had 3 quite good tracks for that kind of characteristic, it's fair to say.
This is true. And so far we had a look on the previous event, and it was only on the low downforce track. I'm not sure that they could or they want to use the same trick in Singapore or in Zandvoort, for example. But again, that we have to give the responsibility to the scrutineering, to the FIA. It's not my job to do it. It's not James' job or whatever. That they have to do it, and we have to trust them. Honestly, that I'm not complaining about this. I think it's more than borderline. We all saw the video and the picture of this, and it's a bit frustrating when, if you remember perfectly the situation in Monza, we had 5 cars in 200 of seconds, and you move from P1, P2 to P5, P6 for 200 of seconds. In Baku, we arrive 10 laps in a row, side by side, turn 1. That you can imagine that we have a bit of frustration.
All right, thank you, Fred. Next one, please. Yeah.
Clearly they are cheating.
Question is to the two team principals. In the last 12 races, we only had 3 times a full grid of 20 cars because people were taking engine penalties and started from the pit lane. We only have this small grid of 20 cars and we keep removing cars from it. Is this something that should be looked at to give fans more of a spectacle of a full grid?
When I look at it, you're correct. The last one, I think, was Lewis with an engine penalty. But before that, I think one of the Alpines was a different problem. I actually think there's an interesting side to it, which is when you're in a battle that's that tight at the back and you're at the back end of it, you're effectively throwing the dice to try a completely different setup, which is why they're doing it. They're not doing it because they want to add technical components. I know Lewis did, but that's an outlier. And it creates a very different dynamic in the race and more learning. So from that perspective, it sort of shuffles the race up a little bit more than it would do if they just lined up on the grid. I don't think that's necessarily a bad item. I think on PU penalties, we're not in a bad place now. Lewis obviously had some issues before, which is why it's there. But with the 4 PUs on the grid, you're seeing cars near enough always wanting to hold on to position. I think all you're seeing is a natural element of such a tight midfield now that if you're at the back of it, you've got to try something different.
I think each case is different, but if you have a look now, we are at race 17. Tom. And I'm not sure that a lot of drivers took penalty just for the comfort or for performance interest for the future. That we are all on our path to do the season with 4 engines. Perhaps that we won't achieve it, but it's the right limit. Now you have some. I think it's more your question that you have some decision to start from the pit lane for comfort or performance and so. But I think it's marginal. Over the season, we don't have so much. Perhaps it was more the coincidence of the track, crashes, and so. And each case is very different. That I think that some incidents were due to crashes, some other for engines, but we are at the limit. And no, it's not a drama for me.
Okay, thanks both. Luke, please.
Smith from The Athletic. Question for the two team principals about the other big topic of the weekend, which is swearing, it seems like. Could I get your thoughts on what Mohammed Ben Sulayem was saying about clamping down a little bit? Do you think too much is expected of drivers maybe in the heat at the moment? And Fred, you were warned last year after your language in a press conference. Max Verstappen's been asked to do some work of public interest as a result. Could I get your thoughts on that?
Okay.
I dare you to swear.
No. First, I'm not sure that I'm the best reference to speak about it. And I think we have to make a difference on the language during the race, because I think we are one of the only sport where you don't have the microphone on the football player or whatever. I don't want to say the football player as a reference, but we have to understand also that they are driving the car at 350, and I'm not sure that the language is the first priority for them when they are driving the car. And this I can perfectly understand. That we can discuss about the other approach. And again, I won't do it for obvious reasons. But I think when they are into the car, it's a bit harsh.
James?
I think Fred's right. I mean, it's when you're actually out there in the moment, and even at a point where you think someone has challenged your life, which is often some of the manoeuvres that end up being, all of you, everyone in this room would have an emotional reaction to that. There were 2 differences to it. Clearly, I understand we're world sport and there's elements that we have to remain under control. And there are other situations where perhaps language has been used on a slowdown lap in a station in the pit lane that can absolutely be avoided. But we have to also try and keep in mind that we have some of the most elite athletes in the world putting their life on the line as gladiators, and that will cause an emotional reaction. And as much words as I can use with them here in the calm of the moment, you've still got adrenaline through the body, and it'll be very difficult to change that period. I mean, Franco swore today, if I'm completely transparent, but we'll have a chat with him later about that. That wasn't for any other reason that he forgot something. That we can clean up. But I think in the heat of the moment, we're asking a lot of athletes.
Thanks both. Any more? Yes, Adam.
Norman Fischer, motorsporttotal.com. Following up from my question earlier, we've got the budget on the engines now as well. Could this be a good point to get rid of engine penalties?
They're two sort of different things, in my opinion. So you're right. The budget cap on the engine is a good thing. It makes them more into businesses than they were previously. Just to be clear, they're not still, their income stream is very minor, but it controls the expenditure in that regard. But I think in 26, you want engine manufacturers still to be targeting a reliable engine. You do not want just throwing engines at the grid, because the teams that have that will still suffer in terms of other expenditure on it. They're targeting it anyway. So in my opinion, still having penalties in place with a sensible number of units for the year is actually what they want to achieve anyway, and it's a natural procession. I'm not sure they're the same thing in my mind anyway.
I'm not sure to understand the question, because that the financial regulation is for the engine supplier. And the penalty is for the team. That on Mercedes, for example, or for us, it would be financial regulation for Ferrari and the penalty for us. I'm not sure that we can make the confusion.
Adam, yeah.
Adam Cooper, everyone. Question for James. Pat Fry told us earlier that after this weekend, that's pretty much it in terms of upgrades for you. Obviously, a lot of people, or everybody else, is bringing stuff for Austin and beyond. Especially Alpine, Haas, Sauber around that area. Are you a little bit nervous about being able to hang on to 8th, and also are you giving up an opportunity to maybe grab another place? And how hard is it to make that decision to focus on 25?
The main thing is I have no concerns about the program that we have in place at the moment. There's a really good step of performance on the car this weekend, and we haven't fully optimized the aero package that we put on previously. Everything that we're trying to do, all teams are trying to do, is get the performance of the car as quickly as possible. So the way I more see it is that we've stepped up in advance, and we have a few more races to use it than others when they turn up. The second bit is all you can focus on is yourself. You've seen enough times this year that teams have tried to add performance and it hasn't translated. In our case, we look positive in that regard. And what I can focus on is delivering the most that we can out of the car and the drivers for all remaining events.
Okay, who's next? Back to Ed.
Estoril, the race. Another one for Fred on the wing topic. Do you regret Ferrari not being a little bit more aggressive, maybe in terms of what it did with both front and rear wing flexing? Because in the case of the rear wing, if you can, let's say, run a wing in a certain way for a few races and you deploy it strategically, that can be quite a big advantage. So are you kind of pushed into doing that in future?
Honestly, we are pushing at the limit of what we are considering legal. And I can't ask the team to overshoot this limit. But now we are reacting. As soon as we have a clarification from the FIA, we will act as the FIA is, as long as they are okay.
All right. Thank you. Next one. Back to Luke.
Luke Smith from The Athletic. James, following up on the questions about Franco earlier, there's one seat that could be possible for him in F1 next year at Sauber. How open are you to that possibility? And if you were to help him into that seat, would he need to stay part of the Williams program, or would it be kind of a heavy heart decision if you had to cut ties to allow that to happen?
So what I've already said is he is a racing driver, and I think he's already demonstrated in just a few races that he belongs on the grid. What we've already said is we're very open-minded. We're waiting for, in that circumstance, Audi or Sauber to come to us and say, what do you want, what are you interested in? And from there, we can then discuss what it actually means as an implication. But the first stage is more an open discussion.
Okay. Any more from the floor? Yep. Back to Adam. Yep.
Adam Cooper one for James and Fred. These cars are clearly not easy to drive. They're big, heavy, high downforce cars, and yet you've both got guys that have jumped in and made it look easy. Is there any explanation for that? Is it just the preparation that you were talking about earlier, James, in terms of the sim running and all the stuff they do back at the factory being embedded in the team?
I mean, I sort of counter slightly the big heavy. They're actually incredible feats of engineering, these cars, with good amounts of downforce, just in a tricky region to operate it. I think what you're seeing in both cases you said is actually the drivers were exceptional. I can guarantee you if I jumped into it, it looked like a mess. It's a lot of preparation in the background. It's a lot of simulator work. It's a lot of psychological training. It's a lot of what a young driver academy program should bring to a driver in that circumstance. But it's also down to their natural talent that's coming through. And I think in both cases, there's a huge amount of it which is carrying them.
Yeah, it's probably also coming from the fact that the F2 is a good preparation. Now the F2, they are doing 14 events. At one stage, they were doing 9 or 10 with the car who is not that far away of the F1. And it's the best preparation. On the top of this, a lot of them are doing tons of days of simulator and so, and they are at the level. Now, I'm not sure, and as James said at the beginning, the main issue for me is not the speed, because the speed, you can find a couple of drivers with a good speed. I'm not speaking of mega speed, but with a good speed and a decent one. It's more to manage the weekend and to not do mistakes. And at the end of the day, if you remember that Jeddah, for example, with Oli, that I was mega impressed by the job done by Oli, but even more with the fact that he didn't do any.
Okay, because of the YouTubers, I must comment a little bit about the press conference and give my opinions. I'm not going to talk about the Pirelli tires or Franco, maybe a little bit for Franco Colapinto, but as you guess, I am going to talk about the top main topic that all weeks there's a lot of speculations about the McLaren's mini DRS, and just journalists asked that question to Fred Vasseur, and like he said, it's black and white, but like he answered that, I think politically, I think he thinks that he just wanted to say that okay, they are cheating, but FIA is not doing anything, and we are not FIA, we can't do nothing about that. Like front wing, they bring the same front wing, flexible front wing on this track, and no one is talking about that because McLaren and Mercedes did that, and also Ferrari said like, okay, if FIA is not doing nothing, I'm going to bring that the same update. But as he said, like for the rear wing, it's like black and white. Moving is cheating. It's not moving and it's not cheating, but there is a lot of speculations, and I believe that Vasseur think it's like cheating. But as he said at last, we are not FIA and we can't do nothing, but we are under it, we are looking for it. I think FIA will take, actually FIA must take steps about this problem or cheating, let's say, and we will see what will happen. Also, Nasser bin Salayem just said about the drivers, there are a lot of swearing, I don't know, blah 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 blah, stupid shit, you know. They are under pressure all the race, they are driving like 20 kilometers per hour, and you can't just control your language, you know. You have too much adrenaline on you. But we will see what will happen. Also, they talked about let's say championship, constructor championship, Ferrari's chance. Very wisely, Vasseur just give this opinion or his thoughts, you know. We are looking race by race, but okay, maybe they are looking race by race, but I think they want it, and they will do everything to take it from McLaren, because I think Red Bull's domination is over, and they just can't win that let's say, team championship this year. But we will see what will happen. Also for Colapinto, Vowles said if we bring it him like in January here, he would be drive like this. We prepared him a lot and etc. and etc. That's it from me, guys. I don't want to take your time too much and to comment like not interesting things. But we will see what will bring us. Today we have also FP2 and tomorrow FP3 qualifying and etc. and etc. Just don't forget to like and subscribe and comment on the channel. See you.